Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous.
Okay, I've learned an interesting lesson. It's about reaching out across the aisle. It's about finding that you have common interests with the people you always thought you hated and working with them to turn those common interests from a fantasy or a position paper into a goddamned fucking reality. How did I learn the lesson? I flew down to Maxwell Air Force Base in May for a quick space conference, 20 people at a table. The three top authors of the books on space strategy, a three-star general, a bunch of military people, and 5 of us from the space community who'd flown in from all over the place. I listened very carefully for an hour and a half to what people were saying, and then said, look, I think that you people are aching toward a simple idea, a $2 billion moon prize. And I laid out the fact that we could offer $1 billion to the first company that could land a nice, big, comfy human habitat on the moon, and another $1 billion to the company that could set that base up and run it. And I knew, and everybody at the table knew, that Elon Musk has a rocket, the Falcon Heavy, that's capable of pulling this off now, today. That Bob Bigelow of Bigelow Aerospace has a big inflatable habitat that's capable of being a moon habitat. That's what he designed it for now, today. That all the ingredients are in place. We don't need to agonize the way that the government and NASA are agonizing right now. Okay, I flew back to New York with this plan. There was universal excitement about this plan. I tried to hand the leadership over to the general. The general kept insisting on handing the leadership back to me. Certainly a general outranks me, if nothing else. And then I got an email from one of the people in my space community. He's on the board of the National Space Society, and I sit in on board meetings. I'm a member of the Board of Governors of the National Space Society, and the two of us have turned out to have a lot of common interests, things we want to crusade on together. And he sent an email saying, could you get down to Washington on Friday for a meeting with Newt Gingrich? Now look, I'm a Democrat. I'm a liberal. I think that Newt Gingrich is the man who broke American politics. Newt Gingrich to me is a monster. Newt Gingrich is one of the leading propagandists for Donald Trump, who, as you know, is a president I loathe and despise, and I think he stands for the Antichrist version. He doesn't understand American values at all. He has no right to claim that he stands for them. He doesn't. He doesn't understand them. So, to me, Newt Gingrich and Donald Trump are monsters. But I said yes. I took the train from New York City down to Washington, was at a meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning. It was at another big conference table. At the first conference table down at Maxwell Air Force Base, everybody had jostled me into taking the foot of the table, which is a power position. It wasn't something that I wanted. In this case, the power position was sitting directly to Newt's right. I tried to jostle the general into that position. The general outmaneuvered me, and I was sitting with my left knee up against Newt Gingrich's right knee, telling him about the $2 billion moon program, which he renamed the $2 billion moon prize. Now, it looked to me like crickets. Newt's face was blank. I'm pretty good at reading faces, or so I think. I couldn't read a thing in Newt's face. I certainly didn't see any excitement. But then Newt went to work on the $2 billion moon prize. And we ended up in Time, Newsweek, ABC, NBC, Fox News, Politico. Politico was really the publication that got the ball rolling, CNET, and a host of other things because of Newt Gingrich's action. What did I learn from this? You can sit down at a table, knee to knee, with a person you think is your vilest enemy. And if you find a common interest, something you both would like to achieve, you could block out all of the things that separate you and concentrate entirely on the things that unite you and make those things that unite you from position papers, from ideas, from rhetoric, turn them from rhetoric into reality. And this country needs more of this. America is at the most divided point in its history. Peter Turchin, the author of Ultra Society, How 10,000 Years of War Made Humans the Greatest Cooperators on Earth, a book, ironically, about cooperation, says that we are at the least cooperative level since the Gilded Age of the 1880s. That's 140 years ago. Then cooperation was at an abysmal low. People were at each other's throats. But they are even more at each other's throats today than they were back in the days of the Gilded Age. Another thing that Peter Turchin points out is that societies that have large-scale mechanisms of cooperation tend to outcompete other groups. In fact, they swallow them whole. But groups whose mechanisms of mass cooperation break down are taken apart by others and destroyed. We have several common interests on which we need to cooperate. One is infrastructure. We have $3 trillion worth of infrastructure repairs that we have to make. Bridges, tunnels, roads, things that need to be upgraded, things that need to be not just upgraded from their mid-20th century versions, but need to be upgraded to their mid-21st century versions. They need to be the tunnels and the bridges and the roads of the future. That is something even Donald Trump agrees with. And the Democrats agree on it too. So do the labor unions. We need to focus on that. We agree, strangely, on universal background checks for guns. There was a poll on September 9th, Washington Post ABC poll, and it said, and I'm quoting from the Washington Post here, that 86% of Americans support implementing red flag provisions, allowing guns to be taken from people judged to be a danger to themselves or others. 86%. That's huge. To go back to the Post, and 89%, even more, support expanding federal background checks to cover private sales and gun show transactions. Both measures are supported, here's a big surprise, by at least 8 out of 10 Republicans. We have a huge area of agreement. We have to stop the AR-15 mass shootings. Another area on which we should have an area of agreement is our competition with China. China plans to own the middle of the 21st century. How? The major energy source in the 21st century is going to be solar power harvested in space and transmitted to Earth. Solar power from space solar power, will completely eliminate the use of fossil fuels for power production. It will drop human greenhouse gas emissions by 45%. More than that, it will supply power not only to the currently industrialized world, but to people who've had no power in the past. My partner in promoting space solar power for 4 years was Dr. APJ Kalam, the 11th president of India. And he knew a good deal about poverty because it was a problem that India had been fighting during his lifetime in a major way. And he said that space solar power will lift 2 billion people out of poverty. If China gets to this enormous new resource first, it's crickets for us. It's over for us. We will be a second-rate power the way England is a second-rate power today. We cannot afford that. Why? Because we hold certain values to be self-evident. Among them are freedom of speech and human rights and democracy. The Chinese do not believe in democracy. They have a radically undemocratic system. They do not believe in freedom of speech. They believe the government has the right to tell you what you should and should not say, and has the right to punish you if you say the wrong things. Human rights in general, we think those are universal. Those are not. Those are an invention of Western civilization. But if you believe in them, and I certainly do, you want them to spread. The Chinese do not want them to spread. They are against human rights. To stay ahead of the Chinese, we have to develop the economies of the mid and late 21st century, and those will be based on harvesting solar power in space and sending that power down to Earth. They will be based on expanding the resource base of the Earth. How? By reaching out to space, by mining meteors, by mining the moon. The explosion in the gross human product, the GHP, is going to be enormous when we fully get into bringing these resources into the ambit of the biosphere. The human GHP will triple. It will literally triple. And it will benefit all of life. all of life. If we can do what Jeff Bezos is talking about and move all of our industrial production into space, that turns the Earth into a giant petting zoo. That leaves room for all the species that currently exist on Earth. Or, as I like to put it, space is the Green New Deal. These are things we can agree about. And the sooner we get together and forget about words like rhino, and forget about turning people into black sheep if they dare to compromise with the enemy, which is something the Republican Party has been doing for 15 years, basically demonizing those within its fold who are willing to find some sort of compromise with Democrats. We cannot afford that among Republicans. We cannot afford them among Democrats. We have to sit knee to knee the way that I've done with Newt Gingrich and work to make the things we agree on turn from simple statements and position papers and platforms into absolute realities, because we need to beat the Chinese, because we need to support freedom of speech, human rights, and democracy. This is Howard the Humongous, speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make. Or, want to know why? Ask how. And one of these days I got to look up a whole bunch of new S words to use for the sneaky, slimy, seditious little off button, not to mention sibilant. I think I found it.